I'm waiting for it to say we're live on Facebook, and then we'll go.
There we go.
Preparing a live stream. Funny part is, it always says it's not gonna do it on the one thing, but then I look on the other one and it's doing it, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go. We're live
Oh
again.
yeah.
It did it to me again, motherfucker. Right? That's what it is. That's what we're doing
Oh yeah.
today. That's what we're doing. Anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome to Suitman Productions. It's your boy. It's your boy. Ah! If you haven't got enough of me today, who gives a shit? It's your boy
Yeah.
Dante Suitman Barnett. We got a double feature today. We started today with Dating with Disabilities. Michael Coria, very flamboyant, highly sexual, fully verbal, no mental disabilities, just a crippled body. And we're going to go to the other side of the spectrum. We're going to go with a conservative, autistic, extremely weird and awkward at times, but we've grown on each other, magician. So we're we're going for the same totally different thing. Like, he doesn't go out there and freestyle his comedy, if you know what I mean, right? He goes out there with a plan, and there's no heckling the magician. I would love to see somebody heckle Paul, but boo, I want to see a brown rabbit, you racist. Why do you only use white rabbits? Anyways, without no further ado, welcome to Autastic Artists 36. What we do is we try to highlight comedians, musicians, entertainers, people of all sorts. Basically, anybody who tries to do some sort of creativity, which is even expanded into artists, singers, a couple of actors, and just kind of figure out like what's their process, how their process, what's it doing. What is autism to them, even just so people can understand. Not every kid's gonna just want to like look at trains and collect rocks all day. There's hope. But yeah, Paul's like, I still collect trains and rocks. I know, Paul. Anyways, our guest he gave me a thumbs up. Yeah, our guest today. Where you? I forget where Paul's from, but he'll tell us in a minute. I think it's Minnesota, if I remember correctly. But no, he just said it. It's Connecticut. Same fucking thing. The reason why I said Minnesota is because we all sound the same. Paul doesn't really have an accent, but he can throw an accent on. But all the way from Connecticut, give it up for Paul Kilmer, everybody.
Hey everybody, it's me, Paul, causing problems at 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's not
Always
12
causing
o'clock.
problems.
It's not 12 o'clock for everybody. Tell them who you are,
Sorry.
Paul. What do you do? What are you? A magician? What kind of magic? Tell them a little bit.
My name is Paul. I'm autistic. I'm a professional magician slash comedian slash balloon twister slash children's entertainer. I'm your one-stop shop for annoying Dante. We have we both share the tism, and I've for the last 30 to 40 years I've been entertaining families all over New England. That's a place, you can look it up. We have apples. We have the distinction of creating pumpkin spice, so I apologize for that.
I don't know.
Uh,
Hold on. I'm in Seattle with the place is Starbucks. We may
yeah,
fight over that. There's a whole
I
line
know.
of white people like, no, that's our shit. Don't you dare. Go ahead. Sorry. Starbucks is from Seattle, not Connecticut.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
fault. Go ahead. Sorry,
We
Paul.
in New England we have Dunkin' Donuts, which I also have to apologize to people because it's spreading out of New England. And Dunkin' Donuts, the herpes of coffee. You know, I'm old enough to know what herpes is, and they don't teach kids about herpes in school anymore, and they should. I think the things. I think the share has been successful for me, and I know you were currently in Hawaii. Um,
This isn't
uh,
about me, Paul, but I'll get you back
no,
on script. So here's the thing, Paul. What do you do magic, right? And you're
yes,
autistic, right? And
yes,
and this is your third time on the podcast, right? I
it
think this is
is.
your third time on Autastic Artists. That means almost 10% of our episodes are about Paul. And there's a reason. And I'm not being a jerk. I'm not trying to be funny,
Hmm.
but Paul will agree. There's been a growth between me and
Yeah,
Paul together, and then just what we do. This we could have done this with two people the last two times, Paul. It wouldn't
yeah,
have gone the same. But
no.
Paul, if you look at the flyer, Paul's got this clean look. He looks like a clean shaven guy. He's got this fresh haircut. Now he looks like he should not tell everybody he's a child entertainer. He definitely looks like he's the creepy uncle. What happened? You just grew it out. What's going on, Paul?
You caught me between gigs. I started growing out the hair because of a midlife crisis. The beard I've always had. Growing a beard, as you know, is a sign of dominance for people who don't and can't grow a beard. You always have to assert yourself in situations. Um, but there is a rhyme and a reason to what I'm doing. I can't really discuss it right now because um, I don't know if it's going to happen and I don't want to get people excited. But yeah, there's a reason for it. I typically perform with my hair down, but the long hair is more or less for my comedy magic. I put it up in a ponytail when I'm performing for kids. Anytime I perform a show, I edge myself up because I'm an adult and I won't pay for someone to do it. And
Hold on. I love how you say because I'm an adult. Actually, the answer is
it-
because he's cheap.
yeah,
It's not because he's an adult, it's because
and
we
I
have
know.
bills. So
Yeah.
let's time out. Let's stop. Let's go back.
Hmm.
So, I think you're one of the people who's been autistic your whole life, right, Paul? I mean,
Yeah.
not saying I haven't been autistic my whole life, but you've
Yeah.
known it. You've been diagnosed. You had your pocket protector your whole life. It's not something new, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
when you think about the tism and dealing with it, um, was being a magician something you always thought about, or how did you become a magician, Paul?
That's actually a really good question, and I'm glad you
Hold on, hold
asked
on, hold on.
me
Thank you,
what.
Paul. I'm doing an interview. I'm glad. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Fuck you. Go ahead, Paul.
It's okay. I'm used to it. I'm just trying to be nice. Anyway, uh, you're my friend, and I don't want to say anything mean to you. Oh, I'm sorry for being nice to you.
I'm messing with you,
Um,
Paul. Go
I'm
ahead.
not gonna be. I know you're messing with me. Now I do because you just told me. So, so basically, what happens is so I like to tell people I was autistic before it was cool, and you can relate with me because you're a little older, and uh,
Fucking
and,
Paul. Go
and
ahead.
that was from about 2 to 6. I kind of went through the system of them trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Um, it was the 80s and the 90s, so they were like, hey, he has ADD and we can put him on this drug called Ritalin. And it's like, oh, guess what? He has something called ADHD, and we're just going to put him on more Ritalin. And when I was 9, my family imploded because of reasons. And I went to go live with my aunt, and she had the foresight to, start sending me to therapists and psychologists. And about 9 through 14, they were doing evaluations. I remember a lot of evaluations. And then I remember my aunt and her partner sat me down and they were like, okay, Paul, you have autism. It's closer to Asperger's, but I was 9 and I had no idea what that meant. Um,
All you heard was
and
them say you have ass, and you're like, ass? I don't have an ass. I'm like, Asperger's, Asperger's. What you gonna do? Yeah, sorry, my
I
bad.
know it's really, there should be a song. It could be a new that could be a new revenue stream for us. And but the thing about it was is that and you could probably relate with this because you like the Legos and stuff like this, but people of my age, I'm 40, and autistic people who are a little bit older I was always mechanically inclined, so I was always fidgeting with stuff. So my grandfather on my mom's side showed me how to do a couple things with a deck of cards, and that became my fixation. That became what I stimmed with, and staring into mirrors. But we all have one, and so like I didn't have the internet. Minecraft wasn't invented. Um, dinosaurs were my thing. Yeah, I always tell people, hey, listen, I like a good train, just like any uh good autistic person, but I've always been a dinosaur guy.
Oh.
And then I actually didn't start doing magic tricks. I just was doing fancy cuts and shuffles. They're called flourishes or stunts. And I would just perform there. It could be anywhere from turning the top card over or cutting the deck fancy. And then my grandmother's friend Mina, she basically invited me to come perform for her friends at brunch.
Hmm.
And it was a terrible idea because guess what? I didn't know any magic tricks. I just knew fancy cuts and shuffles. But because I was confident, I confused this group of 15 ladies, older ladies, for a half an hour. And because I was confident, they're not sure what I did. I just basically did what I did. And the moral of the story is that she paid me in a $14 check. And that was my first paid gig, and then when I was about 14, I started becoming a family entertainer. And then sometime during that phase, my aunt was like, "Hey, they're opening up a place for called the Innovative Autism Network," and I went down there, and really, that's where Magic with a Message came from. Is my sensory friendly show, and when I do autism advocacy, and I can't even tell you how many shows I've done over the years. I've literally been doing kids shows for almost 25 years, and in the beginning, it was really tough because I was 14, and adult would call me on the phone and say, "Hey, I saw your flyer at the grocery store. How much do you charge?" And I was like, $90. And then I would show up to these people's houses, and they're like, "Why are you a child?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I'm here to perform." And that was really difficult for me because in the beginning, uh, I didn't have a sense of humor. I didn't really.
Sorry, I don't
Yeah,
mean to laugh. You
no,
still
it's
don't have a
okay.
sense of humor sometimes,
Yeah,
Paul. Neither do
yeah,
I, but
and
you know what I mean? I can see
yeah,
people like having small talk with you at
yeah,
15 and you just being like, uh,
uh, yeah,
am I getting paid? Where's the food? I need to go to the bath.
yeah,
I gotta put
yeah,
on my dad's outside. Will you talk to like
yeah.
just
So,
sorry, Paul.
so, um, so when I started doing really well, and it's because, and I'll never forget this. Southington, Connecticut has a grocery store, and it's massive. And the guy from the liquor store across the way, because it's in a strip mall, he took my poster and he put it on his pegboard in his liquor store because he thought my poster was cool. It was terrible. It was early 2000. It was early 2000s clip art, but he thought he was cool. And these moms and dads were call me, and they were like, and even then I was doing search engine optimization. It's like, "Oh, how did you find me?" And they would never answer. And it turns out that they saw my flyer in the dude's liquor store. And that's when I realized it's not so much it's not so much how you're promoting it, it's where you're promoting it. And I realized that parents, they don't necessarily want to entertain their kids at their child's birthday party. And parents are a special group of people who go through a lot to give their kids a quality birthday party. But these are little life lessons that I learned is if that guy had never uh, put his put my poster in his liquor store, I wouldn't have generated the money I needed to create my first kid show.
Oh God.
And it's just funny how these little things happen. And these stories, I tend to have more funny stories than most people because of the way I respond to people's questions. Hey, Paul, how you doing? I don't know. Or hey, Paul, what do you think about this? And I'm like, well, if you're not talking to me about dinosaurs or uh, card magic, we're gonna have a rough
So
conversation. And
I'm glad.
thankfully,
Time out. I gotta stop you there. So I had a friend call me one day because I wrote a script. I think I told you about my script. I don't know if you've read
yeah,
it. I'll send it to you if you do want to read it.
oh
But
yeah,
um, she said, "Oh, maybe we should take out my poems sometimes and we should read them together. Doesn't that sound like fun?" And I was like, "No, no, it doesn't." Right? And
yeah,
she was just like, "Oh." I mean, if you want to, I mean, I'll do it with you, but that doesn't sound
yeah,
like. And her
yeah.
whole right, and that
And
was
the whole
the whole
conversation changed.
yeah, her whole mood went to shit. But I thought, it's one of those things where like people forget I'm autistic, right? Because of how gregarious I can be. But then you ask me a question, or I want chicken strips, and all I want now is chicken strips, and I don't want to stop
Yeah,
eating. I have a taste for fucking chicken strips. And then
yeah,
don't let me get there and there not be chicken strips. Oh my
yeah,
fucking God, I'm not eating for 3 hours. And people
yeah,
can't understand why. Because
yeah,
my brain, I taste
yeah,
it. You get me, Paul.
yeah.
You get it, right?
No, I
And
feel you.
it was
It's
funny to hear
kind of
you.
like
Go ahead.
it's kind of like this. When I was a kid, admitting that you had any kind of disability was seen as a negative.
Weakness.
Well, yeah, and when I was a kid, that's something other kids made fun of you for. And now that's something that has been ingrained in kids now that, hey, maybe you shouldn't make fun of the person who can't control the things that they're doing because either a physical or mental disability. When I was a kid, that was fair game. That was,
That
you
was the
can't,
license to get fucked up, basically. Yeah.
yeah. And, that was the thing. So, um after years and years of therapy and trying to like figure out, I think if it weren't for me becoming a magician, I wouldn't be so personable with people because you have to learn how to negotiate, you have to learn how to interact with people. Like when a mom calls me on the phone going $200 and then hanging up isn't a good sales pitch.
What's your rate? $200. And that's just it.
Click.
And just
Yeah,
it's just being quiet. And then you're not going to tell us anything else. Yeah, I'm a magician.
yeah, that's it. And
And,
that's one
and
of my
and those awkward pauses. No more.
yeah.
Just I'm a magician. Okay.
I've
And
turned those awkward pauses into j- I've literally turned all of my symptoms into ways to make an audience laugh. A lot of comedians are afraid of tension. They're afraid of things getting quiet. I take that quietness and I build tension and I generate laughs from it. But it's only because I don't realize it's like, oh, the audience isn't laughing anymore. Well, that's not my problem. Let's make it funny. I think the problem with a lot of comedians is number one, they want to be immediately good at it, and that's not realistic, but more or less, they don't know how to manipulate the audience into doing what they want to because your audience wants to laugh. So, a lot of people give up on their set halfway through, and your audience. I always tell younger comics like this: uh, comedy is a lot like business. Uh, when somebody is putting faith in you, they're giving you equity. They're giving you equity up front. You go on stage and they have an expectation of you making them laugh. They're giving you that chance. That chance is the equity. And the more you make that laugh, the payoff, the dividend is you having a good set. So what ends up happening is a lot of comedians, they in their head think, oh, I bombed. I'm either going to attack the audience or I'm gonna I'm gonna do the things that I've seen uh, comedians do on Netflix specials and stuff like that. And it's like you're a guy in a bar at an open mic. That's not the same thing. And and then, but your audience is always giving you the benefit of the doubt. So when things don't start doing, and you're a producer, you know, when a producer puts together a show, they're putting all the money up front. Uh, they're paying, well, they should pay their comedians, but the problem is that uh, this is an old thing that I learned a long time ago. If you can draw, people will come to your show. But if no one knows who you are, you have to be put in the middle of the person who's drawing in the opener, because you need a person who's going to draw, because the producer needs to make back his investment on the show. That's
You know,
how. Go
I
ahead.
I look at it differently, and this is where I'm. I think this is where I've gotten in trouble in my comedy scene is because I am a producer, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not just a producer. I'm a decent comedian, and
Yeah.
I think we can agree on that. Most producers are not funny. Most producers who host their shows, they're usually just trying to take stage time, and they're not that funny, and it's their show, so we give it to them. I don't feel like I'm one of those guys. Not only am I not one of those guys, but I don't headline my shows either, if you haven't noticed. I'm
Yeah.
only the host, right? And
Yeah.
so, with that being said, I'm able to keep a thermometer. I'm able to keep the show going, right? I'm
Yeah.
able to give that mix. If you notice, it's always white, non-white, male, girl. Like it's not three white guys in a row. Even if I have three white guys, we're gonna
Yeah.
change it up, right? It's not three newbies in a row. We're gonna change it up, put a veteran, right? And so when I
Yeah.
think about comedy, I think a lot of these people don't, and I think that's where the same. We don't freelance, right? And I think that's the thing about autists, right? And real autists, we can't just go up there and just freelance. No, somebody with ADHD and autism, yeah, because their ADHD just lets them run their mouth. They don't care. But a true autist can't just go up there. We don't build model trains that don't have directions. If you gave us the
Yeah.
parts for a model train with no direction, we'd just be, well, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, my own experience is that I treat comedy like any show. So when I go up on stage, as a performer, I want to give the producer back their investment by making the audience performing the most quality show that I can. And one of the things that I've been working on for the last like 3 or 4 years is being more flexible, which is very difficult, and being able to riff. So my riffing skills have always been interesting because I shouldn't be able to riff, but because I know a lot about everything, I can put together riffs. And because my brain is a compendium of just random information, people confuse that with riffs. So when I'm at an open mic or a show, people feel that I'm running bits on them because I can't do anything but monologue. So because my that's how my brain works, it's like, are you running a bit on me? And I was like, probably, but It's not intentional, and and it's like because the first thing you learn as a comedian, it's like, okay, don't run bits on comedians. And I'm like, this is just how I talk. This is the way I. It's like when I used to do Zoom comedy, and somebody would ask me a question, and I would go on like a 5 minute thing. I would do a set before my show started, but only because somebody asked me a question.
Well, and that's what I was going to get into. I was going to bring up is I feel like that's part of, especially for you. I've known you for this whole time, the past 4 years since we had
Hmm.
2020 was COVID, right? And we
Yeah,
were on Zoom, and we were some of the first guys on Zoom. At the end of Zoom, I wasn't on there anymore, and you weren't either because we were doing
yeah,
real work, right? We go back every once in a while, but it seems
yeah,
like a old funky like hang dive bar that you're like, oh my God, did we used to hang out here? But without that being moving on, I remember when we first started, it was hard for both of us to do Zoom comedy because people wanted to laugh and wanted to
yeah,
interrupt us. And we're like, hey, I want to talk,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
got another fucking joke. Shut the
yeah,
fuck up, right? And I can see you. You can get mad. You'd be like, dude, I got another trick. And there, but the other one was so good. I don't care. I got it. Can I move on to my next trick? Oh, it'd be
yeah. Well,
I only got 3 minutes. I got four more. I'm not gonna get through all my tricks, and we'd be fucking dying. And then one
yeah,
day you were like, I remember it was I think me, you, Athena, and like Sam, and we were trying to talk to you because you're pissed off and frustrated. And you're like, I don't understand why everybody's laughing at me. I want to get through all my jokes. And I was like, Paul, people are laughing. And you were like, oh. I said, Paul, people are laughing. You're like, but I'm not getting through all my tricks. And I was like, Paul, Paul, Paul.
yeah.
Paul, Paul, hello.
I
You're like,
remember
what?
that.
People are laughing. And you went, people are laughing? And I was,
Yeah,
oh.
I mean, Zoom comedy was one of these weird microcosms that really helped me develop. If you really think about it, there was a
Cadence.
mic
And
every.
let me interject here. It's not
Mhm.
just the time, but it made us work on our cadence. Like even in
Yeah.
our interview, we don't talk over each other a lot because we're used to doing this. We'll say, "Give me a second." We're able to because we know we can't talk at the same time or this thing won't work, right?
Hmm.
So we both got to a point where okay, I'm saying a punchline, I'm going to shut up.
Yeah.
And you'd go ta-da, and even if it wasn't ta-da, you go ta-da again, and we'd be like, it wasn't funny. By the third ta-da, well, we're gonna laugh anyways. You're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I guess that works.
Yeah.
I can just do ta-da 3 times, right? And
Yeah.
go ahead, and like you said, there's what 47 mics a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great time to get in your set. And I could truly say some of the bits that I came up with early on Zoom comedy because the magic on Zoom has to be visual but also perfect because you can't misdirect the camera. And it really taught me how to take material from the written stage to the final stage and over. You can tell when a comedian writes a joke and it's new, and then like they work on it for a couple of months, and then you hear them say the same joke and it's polished. And that's what I really enjoy about being a comedian is basically taking a silly idea, going out, uh, building it, seeing it through to the end, and it just being in my act. And I've always had this weird dark undertone in my sets where it's like, oh, here's Paul, he's so wholesome. And then he starts talking about like, um, how much organs are or how much a kidney's worth. Or, and then I've always had this weird,
But hold up, let me stop you there because it's not just you talking about it. It's the fact that you're deadpan.
yeah,
There's no emotion from it. Yeah, a kidney the other day I thought was $12,000. You know, I've got two kidneys. That's a year's worth of rent, and we're just all like, Paul, and you're
Yeah,
not having you've got this dead look, and then it's next joke, and you didn't breathe, and you didn't give us
yeah,
a minute in between, right?
yeah,
And so that's those are the and let me interject here because we glossed over. You went over a lot as far as your career went. It was one day I was decided I wanted to kind of try to be an entertainer, and then I started doing magic, kinda, and it wasn't even magic. It was just shows because
yeah,
parents wanted entertainment.
yeah,
And next thing you know, what when did it become comedy? Because let's stop there. We blew over a whole bunch of shit to become
yeah.
to and
So
and may I interject? It seems like you've become more of a comedian since Zoom, and Zoom turned you into more of a comedian, whereas before you were really trying to do magic. And I'm just giving you maybe my feedback, what I've
yeah,
seen, but it felt like you
yeah,
were a magician and you wanted somewhere to perform, and then you found your act was funny, maybe not for the right
yeah.
reasons that you wanted, but it was still funny. And so is that kind of the transition or what?
Well, the Paul origin story is kind of complicated because I do so many different kinds of entertainment that when I got onto Zoom, I was doing I before Zoom, I had been a stand-up comedian for about a year, and what ends up happening is the world shut down on my fiance's birthday, and Nico, he created Displaced Comedians, and I can't remember if he created it before the pandemic or but I remember it just always being there.
So let me
Uh,
let me tell you, I know Nico, okay? And
mhm,
Nico's from my market, and then he moved to Idaho. So it was about, I'd say, March, or it was like the third week of the pandemic because we were already doing
mm,
Zoom shows and people were doing. He created Displaced Comedians, right? And then
yeah,
we all started getting on there, and then it was this little thing, and then out of nowhere, they talked about it on the late night show or something, right?
yeah,
And they got
and
all this traction, and it was, and like, and not to insult you, Paul,
yeah,
you weren't a comedian when you got on Displaced, right? Because at a year, you're just open micer, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
but you were a paid magician, is what I'm getting at. You were a paid magician.
Yes,
You had this
hmm
career, and then out of nowhere now, you're a paid comedic magician as well.
yeah,
Because you're not just, and that's what I want you to talk more about is how we're not just doing little kid gigs no more, are we?
yeah. No, no, we're doing like adult little kid gigs, and
That sounded so P. Diddy. Never say that again.
yes, I won't.
You mean you're doing corporate gigs, right? You're doing real
Yeah,
parties.
yeah. So basically, what happens is that I don't think I was ever meant to be a performer. I just think my aunt wouldn't let me give up on magic, and I got better and better and better at performing for people because I've been doing shows for since I was 14, and I've been getting paid as a magician since 14. So I came to Displaced Comedians, and people are like, "Oh, it's like I told people I was in doing comedy for a year, not really I really never explained the fact that I had a boatload of experience on a stage, um, doing fundraisers and kids magic shows and walking around at cocktail parties and weddings. So I had so much experience performing that I think I threw a lot of comedians for a loop, and there was like, you only have a year's worth of experience. You have a lot of confidence, and it's like, because me, the problem is that comedy magic, I never quantified it as being any different from one another. I just assumed, oh, how long have you been doing comedy? Huh, I didn't lie. I was doing strictly stand up for a year, and so I think I threw people for a loop because I had material that was polished. And I've always had a tendency to like take a magic trick, rework it so it works for me, and then change what I say. So a lot of times, when I first got on there, um, learning how to make Zoom work was the um, hardest thing for me. Because if you put me onto, because oh my God, the time zones, man, that was the
Well, no,
that was
and
the
let me interject. I think we both had that same success when we met. Everybody's like, "You got to meet Paul. You got to meet Suit Man because they're telling real jokes." And it's like,
yeah
no, we just have a real act. We're not gonna
mm,
come up here and be like, "Hey, I've been eating top ramen all week. Did anybody find toilet paper at Costco? Ha
yeah
ha 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 ha.
yeah
Anybody else get their stipend check?
Uh,
Yeah, right. Like it was
well yeah
that was the thing is that when we started Zoom, at least I saw to you was this, like you said, somebody who had been an entertainer. So even though
yeah
you weren't doing comedy, you knew what it was to entertain, and that diction
yeah
itself made you grow within the Zoom community because at least you're entertaining. Even if you weren't, we knew Paul was going to do his whole 5 minutes, right?
yeah
You weren't going to have somebody disappear on us. You weren't going to run away.
yeah
We knew you were going to actually do the thing you showed up to do, and I think
yeah.
that's part of it. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is that like I learned within when I was doing okay, so there is sort of a slight difference when you're on a showcase and when you're on a variety show with other magicians. But really, for me, it was always respecting the other talent, understanding what an open mic is, what a comedy show is, and what a showcase is. Those things are very important to me because I'm a procedural person. So, like, an open mic is where a comedian or a magician, because magicians have open mics too, is where you go to polish and perform material. A showcase is a showcase with more than one comedian on it, and a comedy show is a host, a feature, and a headliner. Those were very important to me because knowing what I was doing and what I was doing. Like, if you're on a showcase and everybody has 5 minutes, you don't want to go over your 5 minutes because that's going to make everybody mad. And because of the autism, I'm horrified of making people angry. So, or it's like if I'm a headliner and I got 30 minutes watching for the light because, hey, if I'm doing well, I'm just going to go off in the left field. And you could talk to Sam Medina about me accidentally running the light. That was crazy. And I almost wish she didn't. I almost wish she did let me know because running the light was something I still struggle with, even though I have a timer in my case and I have a timer on the floor. Because you know how it is. You create a connection with your audience and you want to keep on making them laugh, but there's the dude who has to follow you and he's like, hurry up, hurry up. And
Or
I'm like, okay.
or
But
long
for me,
enough into it, remember we had 17 Zoom shows at once. So you'd be
yeah,
scheduled on a Zoom show at 7 and then be scheduled at 7:30 and then
yeah,
you'd be on Dat Fan's marathon show where you'd have to do
yeah.
47 hours and beat oh my God. Did
I
you ever
feel
do the Dat Fan show? Did you ever do any of those?
I feel really bad about that, but I did the Dat fan show, but I had trouble following the rules because when I got scheduled on Dan Fat, when I got
Dat
scheduled
Fan.
on there, I couldn't I couldn't follow the rules and the first thing he sends you are all the rules and I was coming from a paid show and it's like you can't perform in your car and it's like, well, I'm not driving. And I I didn't necessarily have a problem. I thought it was a good show, but I couldn't follow the rules because I was getting paid real work. And I actually feel bad because it's like I think it would be a really good thing for me to start doing again. But like I said, I'm getting very busy right now, and it's like another thing is that there were Zoom comedians who always performed in their cars, um, and it's like I was like, okay, well, because again, I have that black and white thinking. I have that black and white thinking, and I was like, okay, well, I can't do this again because I couldn't follow the rules, and I'm like, okay, and so I never tried to get on the show again. So I couldn't follow the rules, and I take responsibility for that. But running,
I my thing was is I couldn't stand the rules. So I think one of my first shows, I had a drink, and I was drinking, and my ice was shaking. He got mad because you could hear my ice jingling because I had a good mic. My mic was hot every time I'd move because we
mm,
can't sit still. You see
yeah,
me look down, look around. You could hear me typing on my computer one time because I'd be typing because I can't just sit here and do nothing
yeah,
for an hour and a half. Because remember, it'd be like 20 comedians from all over
yeah,
the world,
yeah.
three different hosts, plus that fan set, and it was, come on, man! Like I produced a
Well,
ton of online shows, and I think you were on them, and
yeah,
I ran them well, but it was like you don't have to be a dickhead, dude. Like I don't. Never mind. How did
yeah,
you
but
feel about all the Zooms? Let me ask you, and this is maybe something we can talk about. I felt like Zoom was like a real indicator of comedy because there were some places that felt like you were in a Tijuana. You know what I mean? There were other rooms where people would run in and say the N word or drop F
yeah,
bombs, right? There were other rooms where people would go naked out of nowhere and start
yeah,
playing porn, right? Then you'd go to some rooms and it'd be like somebody was lighting incense and fucking
yeah.
sage. Like, what was your biggest horror story from Zoom? Like, what was the worst thing that ever happened to
Okay, I remember that. Okay, I have a couple. I was on one of Kim Nash's shows,
you?
and I love Kim. I think he's an incredible talent, and he's just he's a cool dude. And I remember I was doing one of his shows. I was doing one of his gigs, and literally this guy gets up and takes a piss in the middle of the thing, but his door's open, so we all saw him take a piss. And then number one, it was in the middle of my set, and I was like, "How am I not going to talk about this because it's hilarious?" And I remember Kim. I don't know if he was embarrassed because I think it was one of his good friends, but it helped me get through my set. But it's just like, okay, here's a guy's dong now, and you ran that risk.
Every show,
And
every show. Because remember,
yeah,
at first, nobody knew how to block
yeah,
screens. We'd all be
yeah,
on gallery. Nobody could highlight. We couldn't figure
yeah.
out how to turn shit off, right?
People couldn't get into the room, and either the host couldn't let them into the room,
Oh,
so they
God.
just sat in the waiting room.
Oh, God.
And another horror story is that Zoom bombing. See, here's the thing. I grew up with the Jerky Boys, and I grew up with crank calls. And when people Zoom bombed, it's just like it's crank calling to me. So now with YouTube and people would stream their Zoom bombs, and I'm like, okay, these kids are 14 and they're literally dropping links to gay porn in the chat, right? We're all comedians. We're all comedians. What made you think that we were gonna react to that?
Well, that was the other part is I'd love it because people would run in and it'd be like certain people's shows. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody came in and said the N-word when Dante was there. That never
sure.
happens. It only happens when Dante's on our show.
Mm.
Hmm. So you only let in your racist friends when I'm in the show?
And it
Got it.
wasn't just you. It was a lot of people. Uh, uh, you know, I learned a lot from Zoom comedy by watching like Chip Jones and all those guys. Brian Barganier and all those people who I was on the mics, Joe Gorman, and it's how people handle the situation because it's like this. A lot of these are kids, they're 15 and 16, they're home cooped up, they can't go anywhere, and all they have to do is work on their terrible YouTube channels. And we're all trying to do, and it's so funny when we used to do mics, these kids didn't realize we weren't streaming. Like we, it was just a group of comedians practicing their
That
bits. But
was, yeah, hold up. That was the other funny part is when we first started doing Zoom mics,
Mm.
it was like my conversation with you. It's basically this conversation. We couldn't go live on Facebook.
Yeah, but as soon as people figured out how to live stream their things, I think that was the crazy time because like Anarchy Mike uh was never streamed. So people would run in there and try to do stuff, and it's like, okay, don't. Their first rule is don't be a dick, don't be a jerk, and it's like, but it's not going anywhere. You're wasting your time. And but I remember uh, like when you talk about people being like blatantly racist, there were a lot of individuals of color would I would go on. I take for granted how many shows I had the opportunity to perform on, mics and Zoom shows. And it's just like you didn't know whether or not somebody turned their mic on by accident. And now we all know who was racist in the group. That was like who's racist, who's
Somebody'd be like,
misogynist.
I'd know who it was. We'd be able to know who was muted,
Yeah,
who wasn't. Or it'd be on one of those where they weren't pinned and it was gallery mode. So it's whoever was
yeah,
talking would speak, and so they'd say the N bomb or F bomb or
yeah.
whatever it
Oh
was.
man.
Well, I think one of the cool parts is I think a lot of people, at least for me, I think there was about 6 months where online comedy was just all love.
It was. And here,
And then you know what I'm getting at, and I'll bring this up. So we
yeah,
had originally it was what was it? What was his group? Is it Displaced Comedians, right?
yeah.
Then we had the hypothetical, which wasn't a bad thing, but there was another one. What was the one that the one white lady had?
Uh, Rampantly,
Yeah, rampantly.
the
She's
blue
the one.
mic.
She was the one. No, she was the one who stole shit. There was the one black-haired lady that was supposedly uh
Uh, I know who you're talking
it
about.
had a cool name. She's Axe or whatever, right? But it was weird. I don't bring this. I shouldn't say rampantly stole anything. I don't know if it was rampantly, but there was some comedian that was going to places and just doing mics everywhere and open up virtual mics in every state. And what was it? It wasn't Displaced, but there was a third one. But I guess my point is, it was funny to see how no matter how disjointed we were, we
Yeah,
still found a way to find politics and comedy. We still
I know.
found a way for there to be groups and the in
Yeah,
crowd and the out crowd, and
yeah,
it was so weird to see. And
yeah,
if I'm just saying it, I think you saw it too because there were
yeah.
times we talk about it, but to see how the politics transitioned to Zoom.
Yeah, so basically what happened is that I love Nico. Me and Nico, we became good friends. What I quickly learned by doing Zoom comedy is we went from being in our own toxic comedy community to being in everybody's own toxic
Community.
comedy community. And I always feel bad for Nico because he was dealing with comedians from literally all across the US. Someone would say the N word. He would have to try to put out fires. Someone would be misogynist. It's just like he started Displaced Comedians with the best intentions, and right toward the end, it became Displaced Dumpster Fire.
I wouldn't even say towards the end. It was after about a year. It took about
Yeah,
a solid year because it
and
ran for a
it's like
good three.
And it's just like a lot of people got hurt. and a lot of people, there was, I, I don't know. Alls I know is that I tried to stay in my own lane and support my friends, but even I ended up in like things. But
Purgatory. I know. One of
yeah,
them was
well,
supporting me when whoever had their beef with me, and people wanting to. I found it funny because, and this is where I'll end it, so we're not getting all into the drama. But I found it
yeah,
funny to see how people like me and you, who were already comedians or already entertainers, got better. We built our network. We made more friends. I have more friends outside my comedy network or my comedy city than I do
yeah,
in it, right?
yeah,
And then those people who were assholes on in real life were just assholes online. And they
yeah,
made their little community of people, but it seemed like those same kind of people who can't get road gigs are the type of people who made the, you know what I mean? The people who
yeah,
do get road gigs and can go get road gigs, we were fine and we were the topics of drama, but guess what? We didn't
yeah.
get booked, right?
But my whole thing is nine times out of ten, the drama that happened to me was because I didn't necessarily understand what was happening. But like when we go back and we talk about like Zoom bombing, it's like Sam and Athena went out of their way to make their mic not only inclusive, but they put down rules. And Sam and Athena are literally the sweetest, nicest people I've ever met. And like, so are him and Brian. And it's just like, I remember one time Athena was doing her mic and this guy just went off on her. And I was like, at the beginning of their mic, they say no slurs or no hate speech. And it's just like, just because you identifies as something doesn't mean that you can also just start being blatantly racist. It depends on what room you're in, but the thing is that like I don't understand it. A lot of times I'm very aloof. Going back to the disability, I don't necessarily at one day I'm everything's great, and then the next day I'm like, what's going on? Can somebody please explain to me why? And then something happened where, and this is probably going to make you laugh, and I apologize if it doesn't. Um, someone had a beef with me, and I messaged them because they messaged me, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And it's like, "Well, telling you what's going on is going to trigger me." So, and I was like, "Listen, I understand that that might make sense, but." I have no idea what's going on. I literally woke up to like 30 different DMs asking me what the issue is, but I don't know what the issue is. And then the person is like, "Well, I'm not willing to talk to you about it." And I was like, "Well, okay, but you're not giving me the ability to rectify
Solve
the
the problem.
situation."
All you want to
And
do is have a problem, and not to cut you off, but I do need to cut you off. I think that
yeah,
was one of the things me and you, me and Athena, a lot of us that are still
yeah,
friends, me and Danny D, a lot of us that were real comedians. And what I mean by this is online comedy for those who are not neurodivergent was great because we made friends, we found more neurodivergence, we were already performing, we supported each other. For
yeah,
non-neurodivergents, it created a false hope that they were comedians. And I
mm,
think for the non-neurodivergents and the simpleton toms and the not funny, you know what I mean? Those people who just think they're funny,
mm,
Zoom was their opportunity to be mean to people and try to do clicks and do all these different
yeah,
things. For the real entertainers, for the real creators, they networked. We made
yeah,
friends. We made, connections.
yeah,
We found ways to get each other better. I think one of my favorite things was doing Afternoon Delight, right? And I think
yeah,
it was me and Chip who started we're going to do a daily special. We're going to do them both, right? Where we'd do we'd act something out and do a scene or whatever it was, right? And we
yeah,
started doing the same thing, and then then it was everybody's doing a daily double. So then she had to write more prompts, remember? And it was
yeah,
just those. I think when I talked about being a black Alfred, remember if Alfred's butler was black, right?
Yeah,
Remember that I got that
yeah.
bit somewhere, but it was like I can't get his car fixed because they're always trying to tow me. I try to go get his shit, and I always gotta have him call Mr. Wayne to tell him I can do stuff, right? Everywhere I go, they think I want fried chicken. They forget Bruce Wayne's white. Like, but those were the moments. There was another one where I think me and you did something one time that was fucking hilarious on one of these
Yeah,
mics, but there was so much creative energy for the people who were there for the right reasons, right?
yeah, yeah,
And also, I think you may agree with this, it was easier for us to come out our shells. And I think I told you this before. Before COVID, being high anxiety and trying to do comedy and seeing people get opportunities that you couldn't would drive us nuts. And then COVID hit and everybody was fucking home. And I was like,
yeah,
ha ha, we're all in the same spot. Right. And
yeah,
then to find success online, most people that were successful in real life couldn't do it online, right? Most of the people from our markets that were the veteran comedians weren't hopping online. They're like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. It's weird. It's all these different things. So it kind of, and I think you could agree with this, it gave you a lane to practice and get better where
yes,
we were the veterans, even though we may not have been the most veteran comedians, we were the veterans. And so it
yeah,
gave you a air of confidence. Am I
yeah.
wrong?
No, you're right. And so the way I looked at it is that like I could also hop on my DMs and ask questions to people. The I was never afraid of asking people who have been doing comedy before me questions, just like when I was first started doing my magic. I've never had a problem asking people's questions. And what I tell people now is I did two things when I first became a magician. I took a basic improv class and I took a basic management class. And those, even though those were like 15 years ago, um the information still um, is applicable. Have business cards. Try to dress a little bit better than your audience. That's one thing I learned from you as Suit Man. I got into your DMs and I asked you about fashion. I'm always in the DMs trying to gain little bits of knowledge. Be on time, be respectful, listen, keep your ears open. If somebody asks you something, speak clearly. One of the things I tell my magic students when I have a student is if people don't know who you are, how are they going to book you? You should at least have a Facebook because it's free, and then it's really not that hard to take a clip of you doing stuff. If people don't know you exist, they can't book you. And when people know who you are, that's when you have the ability to draw. And there's no better app than Instagram for building a base. So if you're able to build a fan base, and I think a lot of people struggle with, they can build a fan base. It's how to
Monetize it.
well, it's
Monetize it.
not. So, like, you can have 40,000 subscribers. Are those people going to come out to your show? That's it. Figuring that out is what makes entertainer successful. It's how to mobilize your fan base and to get, it's like, oh, hey, there's a reason comedy shows are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. uh and then old school, there's not supposed to be any mics on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Things are a little different now, but you know I realize that I can't be on all gigs. I realize that when I'm not on a gig, I'm trying to get onto gigs. I'm trying to answer emails. I'm trying to book kids magic shows. I'm trying to book balloon gigs. So when I don't have any gigs. My goal is to get gigs. So I'm always grinding, always networking. But yeah, one of the biggest things I tell starting magicians or comedians, have a business card. Have a way for them to get a hold of you. Have a place where you can, um, I have clips and clips and clips.
Where
One
can
of
you
the
be
things,
found? And that's
yeah,
perfect. That's a perfect transition because guess what, Paul? We made it. Just me
uh-oh.
and you, we did an hour.
Yeah,
I know it didn't feel like it, Paul. We're
yeah,
getting better at this whole talking thing, Paul.
yeah.
So with you saying you've got to have a Facebook, you got to have a thing. How do they book you, Paul? Tell them. Where do they find you at?
So you can come and find me at the Amazing Magical Paul, or you can find me at Paul Kilmer. My DMs are always open. You can find me at Paul Kilmer 5 on Instagram. Paul Kilmer 2 is my Venmo, but only if you want to. Then I don't really use X because I won't stop calling it Twitter. And then I have a hard time with change. Then uh, but yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Paul Kilmer. I'm
Well, and
holding up.
what was the website again? Magical. What's
No,
your
no. My the Amazing Magical Paul. It's my Facebook page for my kids show magic.
There we go. Paul Kilmer, everybody. Thank you for being here, buddy. This has
No
been
problem.
Autastic Artist 33. You guys